Hi, guys. Welcome back to the Genesis Blog podcast. Today, we're going to do another protocol analysis for you guys. And leading the analysis is Sid. And he's going to be analyzing Audius today, which is a Web3 music streaming platform. So, with that, take it away, Sid.
Right. So, like you said, Audius is a decentralized music streaming service. And the fundamental reason for something like this is to directly connect users or fans with the artist, right? Removing the middlemen from the entire current way the music ecosystem and the music industry is structured. To give an analogy or to give you some perspective of what exactly a decentralized music streaming service is, it is simply like a SoundCloud but built on a blockchain. We'll get into the architecture of it in a bit. Let's just cover the hygiene points first. Um, so this project was founded in early 2018, and their mainnet and token launch was in October 2020. Currently, they haven't monetized, so users, you and I, can go on the platform and listen to the content for free. However, when they do monetize, the intent is and it's made clear by the the team behind this project that they want to do a revenue split of 90% that goes to the artists, as opposed to currently in the web 2 music industry, where only 12% of all revenues go to the artist, right? And the CEO did mention, CEO of Audius did mention that they don't want to go down the path of current monetization models like subscription models. They want to really monetize the rights and artist fan relationships. That's at least the conceptual idea, right? And how they want to approach monetization, how this will look in practice. This whole this idea might change, but as of now, this is what they have they're telling us. um, and the whole and also a corollary to this is they want to allow each artist to be able to monetize their work however they want to monetize it. So if one artist does want to employ a subscription model, so be it, right? um, and the other options include like fixed fees for lifetime access for all content, NFT gated, right? One example that they gave, which was quite interesting, was that an artist will only allow access to content above a certain altitude, right? So there are many novel mechanisms which one could employ, and the whole idea here is when so many artists are running so many experiments, the best model will naturally emerge over time, right? Um, with that covered, in terms of funding, the project has got a total has raised in total around $15 million, spread across three fundraisers, 2018, 29, in 2018, 2020, and 2021, all around $4 to $6 million. Investors are quite impressive. We have General Catalysts, Kleiner Perkins, Pantera, Lightspeed, Multicoin, Coinbase, Binance, Standard Crypto. So these are names, behemoths of Web 2 and Web 3, right? And in terms of celebrities, also they've got the tier one celebrities in the music world: Katy Perry, Nas, Chainsmokers, Jason Derulo, and Pusha T. So from a investor credibility standpoint, I don't think there's any debate there. Um, and also in terms of total amount of capital raised, 15 million is not that much, given that their market cap is in the hundreds of $1 million right now. So it from the face of it seems like they've put that money to good use, and for they probably have cash in the bank still, right? Um, in terms of moving into the team, so the founders are these two folks named Roneil Rumburg and Forrest Browning. Um, Roneil is the CEO, right, and he is Stanford undergrad in ComSci 2014. He later co-founded a crypto wallet company. We don't really know what's happened to that, but it does show some background in the space. He was then later a partner at Kleiner Perkins, and he was in the founding team of their fund that looked at blockchain and AI companies. And he's also made the investment in Lightning Labs, right? The Bitcoin in the Bitcoin ecosystem. So quite an impressive background there as well. And the other co-founder, Forrest Browning, he's the product officer. He's Forbes 30 out of 30, Stanford ComSci as well, 2014 class, and Masters in Science as well in 2015 class. He was a founder of a company called Stacksware. It was an enterprise data center management platform. Um, not really sure exactly what they do, but it's reported that the clients were clients were Fortune 500 customer companies, right? And it was acquired later in late 2017. So again, I think in terms of on paper credentials, I think they're fairly stacked well. And funnily enough, this isn't even the best part of their paper credentials, because if you look at their advisory board, I don't think I've seen a better advisory board, to be honest. We have Deadmau5, Blau, Bing Gordon, he's the EA co-founder. We have Tom Schmidt, he's a partner at Dragonfly. Greg Hazel, chief architect at BitTorrent. We have Avicii's former manager, Justin Khan, Twitch co-founder, Beatport CEO. Beatport, for the folks who don't know, is one of the behemoths in the music space. Then we have Jesse Krushak. He's Stratton product at Consensus. And then we have Cooper Turley, right? Web, in very rudimentary terms, music NFT influencer, right? So yeah, so I think the team, I think on paper, the team, advisory, investors is fairly sorted. Really no, if anything, it's only but green flags. So let's move on. Just I want to touch upon the music industry today, just to set some context.
Just one thing before you do that, just around the
Sure.
funding.
Sure.
Yeah, it's actually, yeah, the list of investors that you said are super promising, and I mean really well known, right? I'm just wondering, why it actually shows that the amounts that they've raised. So they raised 6 million in the first round in early to mid 2018, 4 million in the second round mid 2020, and 5 million in their latest round, which is in mid 2021. I'm just wondering, being a bit of a devil's advocate, why did they actually raise more money when there was so much capital flooding around in the market? Like, why did they only
Yeah.
raise a little bit of money? And especially given the fact that they haven't monetized yet, right? And given just the way that the crypto market has been going and the way participation has been going,
Yeah.
it obviously means that the cash that they hold is getting burned. So I'm just wondering whether they have enough of a runway to last this bear market, or whether they have enough traction already that is consistent, that can tide them through it.
So there are multiple reasons why a company can take this approach. It's similar to how when someone buys a stock, it's usually for one reason, that they think is going to go up. But if someone sells a stock, it could be many reasons, right? Um, it doesn't necessarily mean the company is bad. So in this case, I don't know what the reason exactly is, but it could also mean that they want to dilute less. It could mean that they just want to, from a discipline standpoint, having more money tends to make companies burn more money than they should to achieve growth. So there could be many reasons, and the fact that they raise a second round and a third round doesn't necessarily mean they've burnt the initial fundraise. It could mean that they've got a good valuation. It could mean that they want to just buff up those reserves if they forecast a downturn in the market. So there are many reasons. I don't think this is something we should read into much, to be honest. Okay, cool. Just moving on to just touching on the music industry and how it is set up today. I won't spend much time here, but I think it's important to set context, right? So currently, like I mentioned earlier, only a fraction of total revenues that are generated by the content itself that artists make actually goes back to the artist, right? And a major reason for this is because artists in the early days are very dependent on advances, because for them to survive in the short term, they need cash essentially, right? And what happens is then labels, they upfront this cash to them in exchange for future revenues, and that's where they get their essentially ownership of the content and the work that an artist makes, right? It's essentially, and it's important for labels to do this, because their business model is essentially like a VC model. Very few of the artists will really make back all the money they deploy. Um, this is the one important point, that artists are dependent on advances. And a second major point is, because of the way the music industry is structured, or how it was structured in the pre-internet era, there are a lot of middlemen. So labels are an example of middlemen, right? Then in terms of managing content rights across the globe, there are other various middlemen that really take commissions just to manage. Okay, this content has been streamed or has been utilized in this remote part of the world. How do you really facilitate that royalty back to the origin artist? So to do those type of services, there are additional middlemen. um, and of course, then we have the Spotify's of the world right now who have emerged, and that's another middleman that's taking more of a cut. And because of these various middlemen, we end up with 12% being coming back to the artist. So with that background is why we have some people creating something like Audius, where there can be a more direct relationship with the fans, between the fans and the artists. And I will get to how Audius, or this Web3 the Web3 technologies help solving these two essential problems I just went over, right? Um, and before we get into Audius specifically, the architecture, I will also touch upon SoundCloud, because SoundCloud is probably the most the best comparison we have of what Audius is doing currently. And the reason I see that is because if we take video as an example, we have two spectrums, right? We have two sides of the spectrum. We have the really the curated side, which is your Netflixes and Amazon Prime and so forth, and on the opposite end you have YouTube. If you compare that with music, on the curated side you have Spotify's, Apple Music's, but on the opposite end, the uncurated, permissionless, if you will, you don't really have anything. You had SoundCloud, but SoundCloud has really lost its attraction, its attractiveness to the artists and users. And the reason is simple. It's because as they scaled, as they got traction with the whole concept of anyone can upload their music and get discovered. Essentially they encountered the digital rights, the content rights problem, right? They had to strike deals with major labels to if they wanted to keep the content on their platform. And because of that, they had to change their business model, and they had to essentially become a Spotify or Apple Music. They have to use a subscription model, and there are other changes as well. But essentially, because they had to succumb to the pressures of the industry, they really lost the reason they grew that so far to 175 million users. And today, I don't have the numbers on hand, but it's nowhere near as what it was before. So with that white space, we can see why something like an Audius came to be. So now with that, any questions on the background before I go into Audius's architecture?
So not a background, just to kind of summarize into a few points as to what you were saying. So the music industry historically has been run by record labels, right? And like you said, they are the VC funds of the music world. So record labels essentially do three things, and this was highlighted by Kyle Samani in his article on the Multicoin Cap website. Record labels do three things. They essentially, they take a share of the risk from the artist. So what they do is they supply capital to the artist, so the artist has whatever he or she needs to produce their music. The second thing they do for you as an artist is they market for you, right? So they invest money into artists, they take a cut of their revenue, and with that they can reinvest that into other artists. And to basically launch an artist properly, the artist needs a lot of marketing, right? So traditionally marketing was kind of one way, right? Before the internet, like, you could only see what was out there to be marketed to you. You didn't have a choice, and there was no targeted advertising and none of that. And the last thing they did for you was distribution. So they had, relationships with retailers, and they would be the only ones who could distribute your music. So they had all the power, and that power continued through the internet era as well, because they were so, already had made so much money. They kind of dominated the music space still. And even though players like Spotify, Apple Music, etc., came in and took a cut of the revenue, record labels still own a majority of it because of their, legacy influence in the space. So crypto needs to change these three things completely. They need to change the way risk is shared, and the best way to do that is probably, share the risk with fans instead of record labels who are more interested in making money, while fans would have a singular interest of seeing their favorite artist grow. So it's a lot more personal. The second thing is marketing could be replaced with, you know, um, engagement with your fans, stuff like that, where you already have a few fans, but uh, 1,000 super fans is better than 1 million real fans, right? As someone said, you can engage a lot more with your true fans and monetize it to a much smaller number of people because you're taking a much bigger cut of the pie. And the last thing is distribution, which again needs to be on a streaming service. So that would be something similar to Spotify, but where Spotify is taking a smaller cut of it, and the artists and the users are benefiting most from it. If I could summarize exactly why the music industry needs a huge shift and why Web3 can help there.
Yeah, no, I think that's a very fair and comprehensive summary. I think one thing I'll add to this is, um, and another reason why something like an Audius makes sense, or I should say Web3 music streaming service, is over time, from the days of vinyl records being sold to now, the cost per stream has just gone down. It's becoming commoditized, and it's basically an asymptotic relationship, um, going downwards, right? A downward sloping asymptotic relationship. We had vinyl records, then you had iTunes with $1 per a track, and then you had streams, right? We have what we have today, which is even less than $1, right? So the whole idea of not wanting to monetize streams and wanting to monetize the relationship between fans and artists makes sense when you look at that backdrop and that trend, right? Um, and yeah, and I think that addition to what you said, I think it covers and gives the audience, or should give the audience, a good backdrop about what we're talking about today.
Yeah, and another thing is, so record labels are still making the lion's share of the revenue because they have a lot of deals with artists very early on, because that's what musicians think is the only way to
Yeah.
kind of monetize. They need to go to a record label to get discovered, etc. But nowadays, artists are, they're optimizing, or making themselves their best version for Spotify instead of anything to do with the record label, while the record label still is earning the lion's share of the profits the artist is making on Spotify. So there's like a fundamental misalignment there of incentives that needs to be completely redesigned so that all the different stakeholders are kind of incentivized to work towards the same goal, which
Right.
is currently not the way it is.
Right, precisely. Cool. Moving on.
I think, sorry, I just had one thing to say about the SoundCloud aspect as well. Isn't it also true that SoundCloud didn't really have a monetization strategy, and that's also why they failed.
Right.
Like for example, I mean, you mentioned that they had about what 175 million users. Spotify has got about 350 million users, and Pandora's got about 58 million users. The valuation for Spotify is 54 billion. Valuation for Pandora's 3.5 billion. The valuation for SoundCloud is 700 million. That's a magnitude lower. That's literally 5 times lower than Pandora, with 3 times higher the amount of subscribers. So that just means that they have not figured out how to monetize, and that turned out to be the coffin, like the nail in the coffin, because essentially you can't really last for that long. And SoundCloud's been on the scene for a pretty long time, so I don't know how you can last on the scene without having a monetization plan for that long, especially since Spotify essentially copied their main feature, which was anyone can upload music.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
precisely what was they were monetizing, but it was monetization through means like making artists pay um, for more features to distribute the music, right? Um, so it wasn't like a very scalable means to monetization. It was more like short
I mean,
term
that's just a
revenue.
terrible way of
Right,
monetization, right?
right.
If I
Because
And
remember correctly, it was different things. So I think SoundCloud wanted to stay as good a user experience as possible because they assume that since that it's a free service with no ads, people will come onto that service and use it over something like Spotify, where you have to have the premium version to not get ads. But at the same time, I think it kind of bit them in the ass in a way because they didn't monetize soon enough with ads, and they also didn't monetize soon enough with a premium service. So they just had no money coming in, and because of that, they couldn't develop the product better and make it, comparable to something like Spotify. Well, Spotify, kind of they created a social feature, they had a premium feature, and they had a reason for people to come onto the app over something like SoundCloud. And I just think SoundCloud monetized too late instead of monetizing the wrong way. It was just they should have done it maybe 2 3 years in the
so,
past.
so
I mean,
it's
also
an
another,
interesting
sorry,
point
go on.
that it's an interesting point that you brought up, right? Because even I thought that initially, right? But the whole SoundCloud fiasco was more to do with what the company stood for and what the initial user base came there for. It wasn't to be another destination for all music, um, like a Spotify or an Apple Music is, right? It was there so people, because Spotify also and Apple Music, to really upload your music, you have to go through third parties. It's not like anyone can just go and upload it. Whereas a destination like SoundCloud, anyone could go and upload it. So it was this free for all, underground, open for all initial music discovery platform that really got it to where it got it to a certain scale. But the issue is, after they got to a certain scale, the only way they can continue that ethos is to be free, right? Which gives you the monetization issue. But then as soon as they started monetizing, then they got hit by the label saying that you're monetizing on our rights, on a content with which we have the rights to. And then to find a middle ground between their initial user base philosophy and the labels, basically telling them, give us the money, and just the more legal aspects of things. That's where they couldn't really navigate well, and that's why they have
I
really
think they
declined.
made a Web3 product and a Web2 age, right? The only thing missing in this entire thing is a token to
Yeah,
kind of tie all the stakeholders together, because they that's how most Web2 companies kind of grew, right? They started off as free, and then as network effects grew and they captured enough users, then they started monetizing and extracting, right? And
Yeah, I mean,
SoundCloud just didn't do that well enough, and the reason they couldn't is because of the ethos of open source, free
exactly.
for all type thing, which comes perfectly into crypto, which is open source and free for all, but with tokens, so it's investable.
they even fit the characteristic feature of Web3, which is a terrible UI.
Yeah, exactly. There you go.
No, but yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's a well put. It was a Web 2 company in a pre-Web 3 era. I think that's a good way to
Yeah.
encapsulate it. Um, but yeah, cool. Are we good to move on?
Yeah, I think we should go
Yep, let's move
to
on.
the
Okay,
main course, which is
cool.
Audius.
So let's jump into how the whole Audius um, protocol is structured. Um, so there are a few major pillars, right? So first you have the app layer itself. That's simply the the interface, which the platform interface which a user interacts with, which you can go on audience.co, and then it's essentially like a web 2 app, right? Any other streaming service. Underneath, though, you have three major pillars. You have the content nodes, the content ledger, or the CMS, and the discovery node. Okay, so I'll just go through each one by one. First, the content node. The content node essentially is the set of nodes that store the content. They store the content and they make it available for users to stream the content as and when needed. That's essentially what the role of the content node, what the role of the content node is. Um, uh, uh, of course, the content types is the main content type is the song itself, but of course, then you can store images and any other artwork that you want to store. Um, these content nodes use a protocol called ODSP. So this is a decentralized storage protocol developed by the Audius protocol team itself, and it leverages IPFS. Um, I haven't gone through the details of this protocol because that's another endeavor altogether. But think of it as I think of it as any other storage protocol like a Filecoin or CFcoin or whatever you want to compare it to. Um, so that's the content node, right? Then you have the content ledger. Now the content ledger, before I go into content ledger, just think of these various these pillars as isolated instances, and then we'll connect them how they actually work. Otherwise, it might confuse your understanding. So going back to the content ledger is essentially the blockchain layer, is where the smart it's basically the collection of smart contracts, right? um, and then the collection of smart contracts that contain the history of all interactions. So all the wallets that have been used on the platform, the number of streams, the uploads, the likes, all of this is stored on this layer. um, they had initially the protocol had initially built this on an Ethereum sidechain, which was run by the POA network, which is so it's essentially a permissioned Ethereum sidechain. But since then, they have moved this layer onto Solana, um, which does offer further which offers more of a decentralized approach to this particular layer, right? um so and also, okay, so let's go to the the discovery node. um Discovery node essentially indexes the data which is on the content ledger. Okay, so um they make the data queryable. So you have all the content residing in the content node. You have the almost like the registry, the media registry on the content ledger, and those are linked, right? So for example, um, any instance on the registry will have a reference to where the content is stored in the decentralized storage protocol. So once you have that link, you have to index that link to make it readable. Essentially, that's what the discovery node does, and that allows any user to really search anything they want to search for on the protocol. So I know this is a bit confusing to visualize. Um, so let me share my screen. Um, Okay. Can you all see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, so this image right here is how this thing works. Okay, so just follow my cursor. Okay, so we have the artist essentially who starts this whole chain off. The artist uploads the content to the content node. Okay, once he uploads the content node, the content node then further stores it, goes ahead and stores it using the Audius, the storage protocol, decentralized storage protocol. By doing so, the content node receives something called an IP-LD link. That's essentially a reference point to that particular piece of content. Okay, so so the IP-LD link is then sent to the artist back, and then the artist publishes to the content ledger saying that I uploaded this piece of content and here's the IP-LD link to it. Okay, now that's on the content ledger. And then, like I mentioned, the content ledger is linked to the content node or the piece of content via the IP-LD link. Now, that published instance saying that that okay, I've uploaded the content, and the actual location of the content has to be indexed by the discovery node, which makes it readable by when fans want to search for any particular piece of content. And therefore we complete the chain back to the fan or the user. So the user searches for something. Once they find it, then they can directly stream it from the content via the IP-LD link, which has been indexed earlier by the discovery node. Does this does this make sense?
I think I can summarize it I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but okay. So there's an artist, he wants to publish his music. So what he does is he uploads that content to a node. So the node is basically like a node of a blockchain in a way that is storing data, right? And in this case, the data is the music that the artist is, or whatever the music plus other stuff that the artist is uploading. Then at the same time, when he uploads it to a node, these nodes must be all connected to one singular ledger, right? Which is the Audius content ledger. So whatever different music is uploaded, the metadata of that is uploaded to the content ledger. This metadata can be queried by discovery nodes, which fans can use. And essentially, they are going to query the data. They'll get access to the metadata, which will then give them access to the content itself that's stored on the content nodes, if that's correct.
Yeah, so discovery nodes will organize the data, and which will allow the fans to query it.
Got it. Yep,
right?
makes sense.
So yeah, so that's pretty much the architecture. Of course, this is a very high level understanding of it. We'll put a more detailed explanation in the article. One thing I will mention is, and this is something that even I took some time to wrap my head around, and I still don't particularly understand why you've done this approach, is because the Audius content ledger is an amalgamation of smart contracts across all blockchains. So it has contracts of Solana and Ethereum. And one way to visualize that I found to be useful is if you go on their platform and connect your wallet, you can connect Ethereum, you can connect MetaMask as well as a Phantom. And when you have when the user streams or likes or does whatever interaction, all that stuff is saved on the content management system, which is on Solana. But Ethereum is still running in the background. And what happens is the discovery nodes routinely send a snapshot of the updated content ledger based on the various interactions that have happened, and they send that snapshot to Ethereum. So in a way, Solana is like a layer 2 for Ethereum. Is what they're
in a way
architected as.
I mean, they're probably just doing that because Solana sucks and it might shut down, right?
Yeah, no, that's the only reason
I'm just kidding.
I mean,
why wouldn't you just do a roll up?
Yeah,
you get the security of the roll up.
I
You get the security of Ethereum. And you get
Yeah.
like, I
Yeah.
mean, obviously, like Audius was created a lot before rollups actually came onto the scene. So I'm being a bit
Oh yeah,
facetious when I'm
just
saying that.
create a Audius sidechain. I think that would make more sense, right?
Not even an Audius, yeah, maybe an Audius sidechain. Don't really, I
I mean,
mean,
because they want to have an Audius token, right? The only way you can do that is with a sidechain.
no, you can do an Audius token with a rollup as well, right? Like for example,
Yeah, but I mean, rollups usually have a two token system if they have a token because then there'll be a processing fee on the rollup and then they still have to pay gas fee on
well,
Ethereum.
to be honest, I mean, you know how I think about this. I don't think any of these tokens, unless any of these tokens should be used as payment mechanisms, at least. Like you need to use stable coins. There's
No,
no.
I mean if there's a solid value accrual mechanism to the Audius token of some kind, then
Yeah, of
it makes
course.
sense,
But
obviously.
I'm saying that like as a payment mechanism, for
Oh
example,
yeah, definitely.
like
Definitely.
and I would, yeah, right, like that just like stops adoption. But anyway, we're digressing there. Yeah, I mean, if they're posting it on Ethereum, fine, right? Like I think they're coming to grips with the fact that it's all going to be multi-chain, and a lot of chains are going to be settling on Ethereum, so it's a useful thing to do. Not sure about how the gas fees work in that in
I
that
guess
context
we
though.
we need to we need to really look at the tokenomics to understand why they've used this design choice in the first place,
Yeah,
right? Otherwise, it doesn't tie together completely.
yeah.
Yeah. So we'll get into the tokenomics, but I mean, the one reason is what you mentioned, that Solana's unreliable at the current moment. But another reason could be that they've started off with using Ethereum, so hence they
And
have
then
that.
multi-coin came in, and then Kyle was just like, "You gotta get on Solana. It's the best." And
Yeah,
they
one.
just
I
went.
mean, like obviously, like this is it's. Yeah, but I'm pretty sure that that's what
So
could have
one way,
happened, right?
one way I try to rationalize this is, um, so Solana is essentially being used to track the various user interactions, and since all these interactions are currently rewarded, those are further trying to trying to incentivize very granular action. So there is a lot of micro transactions being taken place, and that's where Solana is helpful. So that's what Solana is trying to achieve. But then what Ethereum is trying to do is it's trying to be a more reliable final arbitrator of all the ledger essentially, and all the various third parties that want to access this data then do so using the smart contracts and the final state of smart contracts on Ethereum. So in a way, I could summarize by saying to make composability as reliable as possible is one reason why they could use Ethereum. But this is speculation. I mean, Solana also could in the future satisfy this.
I don't know. I don't think I'm completely getting the design choice here.
Yeah.
I mean, why? I mean, Solana is not even EVM compatible. So the ledger, the Audius content ledger, is hosted on Solana. Is that correct?
So the what they call the content ledger is the collection of smart contracts across all blockchains. So that could be, so that was
Okay.
first the permission blockchain.
Okay.
Now that's permission blockchain and Ethereum, and now that's Solana and Ethereum at the moment.
Okay. So they have smart contracts on different blockchains that are like the same data is being uploaded to,
So
if I'm not wrong. Or it's different
yes,
different data is being uploaded to different smart contracts across different blockchains, and it all ties together on the Audius content ledger, which is who is that managed by though?
what do you mean who's it managed by?
Like the ledger has to be verified by someone, right? Who is verifying the Audius content ledger?
So the content nodes, right? The content nodes and the discovery nodes collectively, they make sure that the
Okay.
content is one, it's reliably accessible, and second, it's reliably consumable.
Okay.
So
So I'm guessing
organize.
there's like some kind of proof of stake at work here where you have to stake some minimum
Yeah,
amount
of
of
course, of
Audius
course, of
to.
course, of course.
Okay. Okay, that
So
kind of makes sense then in a
so
way.
I think this there's no end to this particular the
Yeah.
conversation design structure. So let's move on for now. Just a few additional features that or supplements, really supplementary products that they've built out. Of course, you have your regular music streaming functionalities that any other streaming service offers. I mentioned the decentralized content storage, what they've built out, right? Or SP. They also have an API, which allows any application to, integrate Audius on their platform, so you can essentially stream any content on Audius on the other app. An example of this is Star Atlas. Star Atlas decided to upload all their music to Audius and simply integrate that API into the Star Atlas platform instead of coding in the or hosting the MP3 files in their code base. So that's quite interesting. We have a plethora of projects using the API. One interesting integration is TikTok. I believe Audius is the first streaming service that's been integrated to TikTok. So users on TikTok can pick a song from Audius right in the TikTok app itself. I believe, I mean, I'm not sure because I haven't used TikTok because it's banned here, but I don't believe any other service has that offering. Then they have the Audius dashboard, which is essentially used for data analytics, governance, and node services, which is how to become a node provider and also for delegation. And lastly, I'll mention is before getting into tokenomics is they've created another product called Hedgehog. That's essentially an open source client side wallet, which allows a Web3 app to just look more like a Web2 app. So essentially, you don't have to connect wallet and all that fiasco when you start using a Web3 platform. You can use a username and password, and that automatically gets linked to a private key in the backend, and then you can later get access to it. So that's something that they've done, which just makes the Audius platform more, less burdensome to learn for a Web2 user. So yeah, so those are just a few points that I wanted to mention. Now let's get into the tokenomics. Audio is the native token. It's an ERC20, launched in October 2020. So it has three basic utilities. One is staking, like Yashi mentioned earlier, to operate the nodes. Second is the token allows you access to additional features, and that is from the artist side and the user side. So artists get additional features for fan engagement, any other thing that helps them really build their brand, and users from the other side can get access to various things as well. And then lastly, governance. So these are the three broad utilities of the token. Just touching upon further on the staking bit, staking is, as you would imagine, it's used to secure the network. Both nodes have to stake a minimum of 200,000 audio tokens, which equates to around $60,000 at the current prices. And of course, they can be slashed if there's malicious behavior. And you have a 7-day cooldown period when you want to unstake. The emission rate is 7% of the token economy. And right now, emissions are owned via staking, essentially. And second is engagement with the protocol. So they are essentially subsidizing, or I should say incentivizing marketplace usage by providing these tokens. So it's similar to what currently
it's liquidity mining, isn't it?
Right. But liquidity mining is you get rewarded just by providing liquidity. This is
right.
This is you're getting rewards for actually interacting with the platform. So by creating a profile, by uploading a song, by not by listening to a song, by inviting friends. So it's still bootstrapping application traffic. So in that sense, yes, it is like liquidity mining for DeFi platforms.
I guess it's not like liquidity mining. I guess it's inflationary rewards which are also like liquidity mining.
Correct.
Yeah.
those are the two main ways people, two main ways the emissions of 7% are carried out. Of course, you can delegate your stake to a node. But one thing I'll mention is the real inflation rate is actually much higher, and that's because of the distribution and the supply schedule. So the initial supply was 1 billion tokens, but at the token generation event, only around 150 million tokens were in supply. And of course, then via vesting schedule, those tokens gets unlocked. So the effective inflation has been much higher. And to give you some sense, in October 2020, when it was launched, like I mentioned, the circulating supply was around 150 million tokens. Today, it's 850 million. So it's 8x in 2 years. And if you consider the total supply, circulating and uncirculating, it's 1.12 billion. So there is still
That's an absurd inflation rate.
Yeah, exactly.
What was the supply distributed like? Who was it given to?
I was just going to get into that. So we have, this is also slightly concerning with the initial
Crazy
supply.
amount to investors, right? If I'm not wrong.
Sorry?
There's a crazy amount distributed to investors and founders, right?
36% was to investors and 40%
That's crazy.
to the team and advisors.
That's absurd.
Ooh.
This is what that's a okay. I mean, like the alarm bells and the rip-off bells keep on going on in my head, but
yeah, and only
I mean
5%
that's obvious, right?
Only 5% was allocated to the top 10K users, artists and users, at the time of the token launch.
This is an insane token distribution. It's one of the worst that I've seen.
Yeah.
Funny that we're coming from doing GMX last, which had one of the best token distributions I've seen, to this, which is probably the worst token distribution I've seen. 76% to team, advisors, and investors is an absolutely insane amount to give away. And it's probably the reason why this inflation has been so high, because the tokens must have just unlocked.
Yeah, to play devil's advocate, I think it was the initial allocation and then all inflationary rewards go to the community, right?
Correct.
So there isn't a supply cap on it, right?
No, there is no supply cap.
Yeah, so then they just inflate it every year, and the investors and founders, they get diluted. But that still doesn't ease my worries at all, because the token itself doesn't seem to have any real utility other than governance and kind of giving users and artists inflationary rewards.
Yeah,
so why would it hold its value over time?
And also, wait a second. So you said that the total initial supply was 1 billion.
Yeah.
But and of that billion, 40%, so 400 million was allocated for the team and advisors, and 360 million for investors.
Yeah.
You know how long that's going to take to dilute away? That's going to take
exactly. So according to their schedule, by mid 2026, investors and the team and advisors will still have 50% of the.
You can't
That's nuts.
even. That's crazy. This is insane. I mean, you can't put these schedules of token unlocks for so long, because then you have a constant supply of downward sell pressure coming onto the market at all times.
Unless you have a good reason to hold it, but which in my opinion they don't at all at the moment.
This is the opposite of GMX. I'm finding it really funny, actually.
Yeah, GMX was real yield, cap supply, all of that. This
real
is
yield,
no
cap
yield,
supply,
unlimited supply.
Yeah. Real
and
yield,
GMX
cap
obviously
supply.
no investor allocation also.
Exactly.
In GMX.
GMX was, and literally the entire tokenomics is designed to keep people holding the token. This is the entire opposite situation where the tokenomics are designed to sell, and there's so much to sell.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, I mean, this is a big red flag. If out of everything that I've gone over, this is probably the biggest red flag. The utility, I mean, beyond governance, access to features, all that, I mean, it's all promise, really. Even access to features, I don't see anything that they can think of and they can build which will give a strong enough incentive to actually hold these tokens. So yeah, I mean,
Okay, just think about it, right? Like, how is okay? So, have you got like I'll say this after you expand a little bit more on the governance aspect of it. Um, yeah, sorry, I'll let you go on so
yeah.
that I can
So
make some
let's
comments.
okay. So with that cue, let's just go into the governance. So the governance is essentially a one. The model is one token per one vote. Model they're employing. Um, the the treasury, which was allocated to which they are allocated, around 18% of the initial supply. That's managed by an open audio foundation, but it's essentially a DAO because even though they don't mention DAO anywhere, it's essentially a DAO because the one token has one voting right. Then interestingly, they have put in place emergency powers. Really, they don't call it emergency powers, they call it short circuiting, but it's essentially emergency powers, which is a community multi-sig, but with 6 out of 9 signers, they can essentially pass anything on their own, any proposal. And they didn't explicitly mention who the 9 signers were, but I would assume it's the founding team or core advisors and whatnot. Um, they of course they mentioned that this whole thing can be taken away via community voting, but as of now, um, there's no such indication of that. And they funnily they mentioned that the the signers have the controllers of the short circuiting multi-save are committed to not veto said proposal when the time comes to relinquish control, which is like what, like that doesn't mean, that doesn't give me any confidence, because there's no way to really verify that and enforce that. So yeah, so that's one interesting part. And then currently only nodes can propose, you can make proposals on chain. Again, this can change via governance proposal, but so far nothing of that sort has happened. Um, and the way they actually do the whole process, it's very ad hoc as well. It's via Discord. Really, they just have the discussion, and then on-chain proposal is submitted, and they have to have a 5% quorum of staked tokens and a 50% majority to get any proposal passed. And lastly, before to answer any other questions you'll have, in terms of governance power distribution, it's quite interesting because um, the top two have about 28% voting weight, um, and after that, the third is 7%, and then 4, 4, 3, 3. So it's quite. I mean, it's not the best, but it's not the worst distribution in terms of voting weight. But if you look at the for the the accompanying wallet addresses, if you look at the number of proposals voted on by each address, the top 5 have voted on 0. This number sixth one has voted on 22. Number 7, 8, 9, 10 voted on 0 again. So it shows that there's a severe lack of engagement by the top addresses. Why that is, I don't know.
Well, it's probably because, I mean, well, I'm not going to speculate on the reasons that they might have voted or not voted actually. But okay, so the token's only value is governance.
Yeah.
People want to sell it. Hence, they might not be voting on governance proposals because they're kind of just getting the tokens and selling it off.
Yeah.
And also, my biggest pet peeve, the one token, one vote model, which is at the centerpiece of this beautiful governance model. Um, I mean, like everything that can be wrong with the tokenomics and governance is wrong. Like I don't really want to mince any words because it's kind of it's just not done well at all. Every single red flag that should be showing up when you mention tokenomics and governance has shown up here. If the token is only good for governance, then why hasn't the governance been designed in a way to maximize that aspect of it? Both aspects are the weakest. So honestly, this is like a
Yeah.
huge red flag.
So one way to think about it, to play devil's advocate, is they are trying to build a Web3 platform, but in the early days they want to be a Web2 Web2 team to to be like as nimble as possible, to not have the restrictions a Web3 protocol faces. That could be one reason.
I think the broader design should be completely different. So the fact that people are just rewarded Audius tokens automatically doesn't give them an incentive to hold it, right? It's a
Right.
reward, and then what you want to do with this reward is convert it to real money and
Right.
take it home.
So
But
there's
they should
one.
do, sorry, let me just
Yeah.
finish and then you
Go ahead. Go
can.
ahead.
What they should do is, have it like Spotify, such that there's a subscription service, which is paid to Audius token holders, right? So Audius token holders are earning a share of the subscription fee, and another share of the subscription fee goes to artists based on how many plays and streams they get. And then artists on top of that can engage further with fans by issuing NFTs, and you can have a system of super fans who earn a cut of your revenue off the platform. And the Audius token should be a value accrual token that is earning all kinds of different fees from every transaction that takes place on the platform with a capped supply. So it should be, so you would buy the Audius token because you're banking on the success of the platform itself, and you're not using it as a method of transaction, which automatically makes it currency and not an investment.
Right. And so exactly, you hit hit on the elephant in the room, really, which is monetization. Once monetization kicks in, then the whole tokenomics and the token utility gets much better, because then you can simply, once you have an income, then you can direct that and value the token in a much more clear way. At the moment, it's it's in the bootstrapping phase, so they don't have any. I honestly don't even think anyone will pay for what they have to offer at the current moment.
Do they even have a monetization plan though?
No, so I went over that in the beginning, right? So currently, all they know is that they want to allow each artist to monetize how the artist wants to monetize. So it could be subscription. Each artist could do it separately. So each one artist could be subscription, and the artist could be, fixed fee upfront for lifetime access to my content. Um, could be anything. At the moment,
But
they have.
where's the value accrual in that
So
format? If everyone can choose whatever they want,
yeah,
eventually it has to tie back to some one singular thing, right?
right. So cut. They'll take a
What
commission.
would that be?
You take a commission of all transactions.
So who is they in this scenario? Who
The
is
token,
taking a commission?
the token.
So the Audius token will then actually, it'll be repurposed, right? Because you can't be paying in Audius tokens and then earning that reward in the same token. That doesn't make any sense.
No, no. So they want to use stable coins for the
Okay, yeah,
actual
then this entire thing makes sense.
Yeah, okay, but okay, just think about it, right? I'm gonna paint a bit of a picture here. So you have a platform that wants to be a Web2 platform, like you mentioned, at least in the beginning.
Yeah.
Right? Like the team is Web2, kind of, right? And just the way that they've gone around implementing what they have, especially around the tokenomics and governance, kind of reeks of Web2. The problem is, firstly, if you actually use the Audius app, it's not good. It's not a good
Yeah,
app. Like I
mine barely
personally,
loads.
yeah, barely loads. Mine barely loaded. I personally, like, I get annoyed with stuff that doesn't load quickly, so I just deleted it within like 2 minutes. Because literally like things just did not load. So firstly, big problem. Second, so the hallmark of Web2, which is ease of use and UI UX, clearly not even been replicated. Secondly, you're saying that the roadmap, they don't have a roadmap for fee monetization and or just monetization in general, and they're saying, oh, it's up to the artists. Don't artists need education? Don't they need an understanding of how, if they don't, they need an understanding of how they can use these different features and a model of the fees that they could earn with several different pricing plans. Artists are not going to do this. You are clearly not playing to your target audience if you're trying to get artists to do this. Now let's assume
I
that
think they
artists can do this.
specifically, sorry to cut you off, but they specifically became artists so they don't
Have to do all
need to
this.
do all this technical
Yeah.
shit, right? Their job is to make fucking music
Yeah.
and
Exactly.
not to
Exactly.
figure out how do I monetize using NFTs or tokens. They shouldn't even have
Yeah.
to know what that is to make
Yeah.
money on this
Let's
platform.
again, yeah, exactly. Completely agree. So second thing, assume that we're moving on and saying, okay, the artists are going to be doing all this stuff, right? Now, even if the artists want to do it, how are they going to do it? Are there any features in Audius or the Audius platform to actually enable artists to do this? So there's no features, there's no roadmap, and there's just hand waving and saying, oh, they can do what they want. I mean, combined with the tokenomics and governance, this is probably like the worst roadmap and protocol that we've
I mean, I
analyzed.
think there's a reason it's fallen like 96, 97% from all-time highs.
I mean, yeah,
It's in
it's
complete
really
decline.
bad. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just like run been run into the ground, and that kind of actually tells you the point that we made, in like the first template about how to analyze a Web3 protocol that we did was look at the investors, but look at them with a pinch of salt, because
Yeah.
the great team that backed them has not really come to fruition at all. I mean, like
Let me.
if either of us were at if I like any of us were at any of these venture funds, I'm sure that we would have at least mentioned this. So I am not.
It's shocking to me
Yeah,
actually
it's
that
very shocking,
like these big investors are not thinking about simple design choices. Like
and it
in like
shows
a 1 hour
negligence.
discussion, we can figure that it's an
Yeah.
inflating currency that has no utility. So why would anyone buy it?
Yeah, I mean, it's negligence. I mean, I don't know why they've not paid any attention to it, because Audius
Maybe I don't
actually.
know. Maybe the early investors were investing, at 2000 during 2018. So these design choices, etc., were not as clear then. But I
Yeah,
guess
you
in
can change
subsequent
things.
funding rounds, they invested thinking that they'll
There was an investment
turn
in
it around.
2020 and 2021
Yeah, yeah. So I'm guessing those they figured that they can change
on
the
what, blind
tokenomics. So
hopium.
yeah, seems
No,
like
so
it. I
I'll
have
tell
no
you.
idea.
I mean, I'll play devil's advocate again, but the founders are from the interviews and the media presence I've gone over. The founders are really really good. Um, I mean, and a lot of VC bets are made on the founder, and not on what their current product is. It's what they can pivot to, right? And also on the features bit that you mentioned, that there aren't features. The point is that that they're progressively going to roll out those features.
But they
Um,
haven't even laid out a roadmap to do that.
yeah, they don't have a formal roadmap. That is true.
Do they
Um,
even have an informal roadmap? Is there like any indication except for like us just sitting here and brainstorming stuff
yeah,
that
they're like
you think
blog
that they're going to
posts.
do
They're
this?
like they're blog posts saying that okay, we're gonna create the ability to integrate stablecoin payments. We're gonna do social tokens. Um,
But
you
these are all like I mean, like, just
like
take this
the
with a pinch
Yeah,
of salt. Like, it's good playing
for
devil's
sure.
advocate and all. But like, just we are being the ones who are cynical here, actually. Not even cynical. I think that Yash and I are just analyzing this on the basis of what it is.
yeah.
Not really trying to be too cynical or anything like that. But um there's playing the devil's advocate, and then there's trying to justify.
No, I'm not. Yeah, I'm not
No, no, no. I
necessarily.
mean, I don't think that you're justifying
Yeah,
the decisions or anything like that. But that like, like, you don't want to get caught in
yeah,
a
of
trap of
course.
trying to justify terrible decisions. Like, it's just like, okay, the founders are good. I mean, people invested like $10,000 billion in Adam Newman, and while our friends at Andreessen Horowitz have invested 350 million dollars in him again, for some reason that I cannot comprehend.
Yeah, I think it's the
Um,
biggest check they've ever written, a
Yeah,
single
yeah,
they
check
have.
in
exactly.
the
So, like,
history,
it
which
doesn't.
is
So
berserk anyway.
insane. So founders being good is not really some sort of benchmark, because a lot of people, um,
I
a
mean,
lot of people can
Elizabeth
come across
Holmes
well.
seemed like an amazing founder, right? Look at
Exactly.
her.
Elizabeth Holmes seemed like an amazing founder. Adam Newman seemed like an amazing founder. Travis Kalanick, and so many people. So, that's one thing. Second thing, like, just because someone has published a blog post doesn't mean they're actually going to be able to do it. We publish blog posts on saying so many different things. Oh, you can do this, you can do that. Doesn't mean that we're actually going to sit here and like develop these things unless you actually lay it down in a roadmap. Like, I mean, are they stuck in some sort of paralysis where they can't figure out which of the terrible problems they should be solving first? Because there's a lot.
I
Okay.
think the main thing for
But
me, it comes down to a very, a very macro type discussion, which is in crypto, because there are tokens, people sometimes can't distinguish between what is currency and what is equity, right? And
Yeah.
in the traditional world, there's a clear distinction that this is currency, you spend it, this is equity, you hold it. And I think for a crypto token to have value, it needs to behave more like equity, where it's accruing some kind of value and you can value it into the future based on what it's earning today, compared to as a currency, which you, I don't know, you buy and you spend it and it inflates away and it doesn't have a cap supply. Like,
Yeah.
sounds like the dollar these days, right?
Exactly. And also, like, I mean, you brought a good point up, which is that most people in Web3 just look at Web2 and go like, oh, they've done it so badly. The traditional world has done it so badly. We're just going to ignore it.
Yeah, but
But
it's worked for the last 200 years, the
actually
modern
the
financial
distinctions between
system.
equity and currency are very useful things. I don't want to have a currency that is going to be volatile. I mean, like, different definitions, but volatile. And I don't want I don't want equity that's just going to stay at the same value, because, well, I am betting on something going up and down. It's just like there are very basic things that are very important that you just shouldn't ignore just because, oh, the evil Web2 did it, or like evil trad whatever did it. Like, it's not like that. Like, you can't be an extremist. But
yeah.
anyway, that's just the macro picture. Like, just coming back to Audius,
Yeah,
I mean, this is not investment advice, but please don't bloody buy
Yeah.
this.
It's funny because
yeah,
Audius is not tradable in the US because it's deemed too close to security.
Yeah,
shocking.
because I mean, well, it is also because look at the allocation of the token and who it's gone
Yeah,
to. Like, just think about
Yeah.
that. The Howey test is archaic and old, but it's still, not useless. At least from a broad high level. Which is, the high level is not really what we should be aiming for securities regulation. But anyway, just as like a bit of a pointer, it's not a bad place to start. And just look at the token distribution. They essentially, there clearly is an expectation of profit from the work of a central team, right? The governance processes are not really governance. So how can you say that, this is done in a decentralized manner? You can't, and they've had enough time to decentralize. So it is kind of,
Yeah.
you can't really say that it's not, like, definitively not security.
Oh yeah, I mean that's a gray area which I don't think we should get into.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
moving on, let me just cover traction because this is another talking point which I'm sure you all have things to say. Reportedly on May 2022, they passed 1 million song uploads, which is a good thing. But and also currently on the protocol 260 million audio tokens have been staked. In October 21, surprisingly, it was 315 million. So there's a slight decline there. Over the course of 10 to 12 months. API calls in this around the same time period has increased from 43 million to 160 million. So that's good. Um, However, um, in August 22, unique plays was 6.4 million. Okay. And October of last year, it was 6.6. So flat. But at the same time, unique users increased from 1.2 to 3.5. Now, while that is an increase, I don't think it's a good thing. And I'll tell you why. Because essentially, what we're saying is one user was listening to around 4 to 5 songs in October of last year. Whereas now, one user is listening to 2 songs and then leaving the platform, right? So that's
That
red
one of
flag.
them is me for sure.
And furthermore, which is even more concerning, is I've gone through the platform and I completely agree with you in terms of just sheer functionality they have to improve on in terms of load time and whatnot. But I've not found a single song which has more than 500,000 listens. And I can't find it. And the artist with the most followers I could find is 1.3 million, and that's Audius itself. The song with the most listens I could find was one of Skrillex's songs, and Skrillex's following on Audius is like 200,000-300,000. So I'm having a hard, and also before I say that, the social media following 130,000 on Twitter, 40,000 on Discord, which is all right, but for a platform which says that they're doing they're doing 3.5 million monthly users on in August, and in fact, the last 30 days they're claiming 6 million monthly users. I don't know; those numbers aren't reconciling to me.
I mean, yeah, it's bots.
Yeah,
It
I
could
mean,
be bots, or it could genuinely just be people like me who
yeah,
joined the
but
platform and went like, "Oh, I can't really use this," and then left.
exactly that's the most like the way they've defined users, right? I wouldn't define a user, a monthly active user, as 2 streams, right?
Yeah.
Like I think that's something that they really played around with, and to inflate the numbers. I think that's the only
Yeah.
it's the only conclusion
I
here.
think, I mean, other than tokenomics, that's a problem to maybe investors. For a user, the only thing that matters is the user experience, and that too is terrible.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's the first thing they need to solve. Then they can maybe get some active users. That wouldn't solve the tokenomics problem, but it would solve the stagnation of growth in the
But
platform
if they
problem
get users, then they
temporarily.
can monetize, which will then help the tokenomics problem.
Yeah, so
No, but like they don't
exactly,
need
right.
users to create a monetization plan. Like even with the users that they have, even if they start monetizing a little bit, then that's still more
No, but they don't have
forward
users. They
direction.
don't have listeners. How can they monetize when they don't have listeners?
Yeah, but then that's a
No, but they
chicken and
still
egg
need to
problem.
it can't be like, oh, now we have listeners, oh, let's think how we'll monetize. It should be, we will get listeners and this is how we
We
will
will
then
get listeners
monetize it.
by doing
Yeah,
this. Yeah,
no, but
exactly.
that
A,
Yeah.
B, C, D, and E.
so going back, what they want to do is they want to allow the artists to monetize however they like.
No, but this is not like I was
I
saying
don't
that
think
like
that makes
doesn't
any
make any
sense.
sense.
Why not? I
Saying
mean
that
that kind of, I mean, in a way it does, right? Because then
I don't think so.
it allows the best monetize. If it is subscription, so be it. But it gives the artist the flexibility to monetize his work how he wants to.
Yeah, okay, but like
Yeah, but they
that's
wouldn't be
yeah.
able to, like, it's a technical challenge for them. I'm sure they would want to have that option, but it's not like they know the intricacies of crypto. Like, how would they know what is the
So
best monetization plan for
execution is
them?
a separate concept. I mean, I'm not debating execution. Just you have
No,
to
I'm
give
saying
the
even theoretically, it doesn't make sense to offer them that choice. It should be standardized in a way, but more fair, right? Because there's nothing wrong with the way Spotify works and the way it monetizes, other than the fact that it's taking too much money from artists.
Yeah.
So all they want to do is move from a platform to a protocol and allow everyone to earn money or a bigger share of
yeah.
it, but also token holders, right?
And
Which
like
is
even
not
if they
happening
want,
right now.
yeah. And even if they want to allow people to monetize however they want to monetize, fine, let them do it. But there should be a default. I mean,
Sure.
if you've read Nudge by Richard Thaler, like you need to it's essentially you need to nudge artists or users of the platform in the direction in which the protocol wants them to go to, while also offering them the option to be flexible, right? It's kind of like nudge theory. So I mean that should be employed, because I mean if you just give someone, oh, okay, we don't know we don't know how you're going to monetize, we don't know how we're going to
It
monetize.
should be that we know how best to monetize for you because the
Exactly.
Web2 world couldn't do it. So we will,
Exactly.
right? That's the incentive for the artist to come to the platform in the first place.
And if you have another idea, go ahead and do it. We will provide you the features and the tools
Yeah.
to be able to do that.
Sure. I think this is more of a communications thing. Like
It's not a communication thing.
yeah,
It's
It's
I mean,
strictly
not,
like
right?
a lack of
It's a
roadmap
clear,
thing.
yeah, exactly. I agree with that.
How is
no,
that a communications thing?
because
Like
because
honestly, there's no
because
defending
they
this.
no, for all you know, they could have a hypothesis, right? But they don't want to. They don't
But saying that they could have, okay, I could
Why
be
not?
like,
I
I could,
mean,
yeah, I like, I could.
because
The,
in your opinion, subscription is the best way to do it because
no,
it's
no, 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 no. But that's fine. I don't care about like the best way to
not
do it. They can decide
necessarily,
on that.
but it's one way. And then they
right.
can, but
Exactly.
whatever it is, it needs to be simple.
I agree with
Yeah.
that. I agree with that. And all I'm trying to say is that right now, they don't have a formal roadmap, which is an issue. What they do have in terms of monetization is the ability to allow artists to monetize however they like. One of which is subscription. Now, if they, for you mentioned in terms of what you mentioned of nudging the artist, right? They could actually do that. I mean, that's not like it's not they've explicitly said that we're not doing it.
Yeah. I'm not saying that they haven't, or like it's not about what they have or have not said. Actually,
But
it's
I
about what they
mean,
haven't said. It is
it's
about what they
been
haven't said. They haven't said
it's
anything.
been 4 years, right, since they built this
Like,
platform.
why?
I
Why
mean,
is there a defense for this?
moving kind of slowly.
Yeah, why is there a
I
defense for
agree.
like
They
no
are moving slow.
communication, no feature releases, no good tokenomics, no good governance, no good user experience? I mean, come on, I've like listed 5 things
Yeah.
It's
off
just
the
no
top of my
good,
head.
bro. No
It's
good.
no good, it's no good. The answer is no good.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is a good segue into my concerns over and above what we discussed.
Your concerns. Oh, we're still to get to your concerns.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I
Wow.
I don't know what you were doing before this, but I'm pretty concerned, man.
Wow.
we've covered most of it. But one thing that's interesting that credit to Coin Bureau, the YouTube channel that to really find this out. Um, so apparently there was a founder which of Audius, which was simply scrapped off the history books. No mention of it in any of the blog posts. Um, some Sri Lankan bloke, and which is and which he has come out and said that that I was part of the founding team and I was this ex CEO. Um, but if you look at the white paper also, there's no mention of him. But if you use that Wayback Machine, then you find a white paper which has him involved and is a different architecture of the platform altogether. Um, so and in combination with there being like 1 year type gaps in the blog posts, there could have been some falling out within the team. Um, that's one. Second, like you mentioned, better protocol, just more transparent, transparent metrics really. One is because we can't reconcile the usage, um, but but also just more detailed metrics um, in terms of the nodes, the various nodes, right? How many the distribution, geographical distribution, is more detailed of the protocol itself. The back end of the protocol. I think that's something that they really need. Like something like a token terminal for them will be very useful. But right now it's very high level what they provided. Um,
Token terminal, I think, is only for platforms that
no,
generate revenue.
it is. But my point is, token terminal gives you very detailed
It's like GMX
data
stats. So
points.
it's just saying, like, for example, they need something like GMX stats or
Yes, a
like
better,
the Toki was dashboard or something. Just
yeah,
like
more detailed.
more details, that
Yeah.
detailed metrics. Yeah.
Um, the second is
I think that's secondary, though. They should focus on
yeah.
bigger
A lot
things
of
rather
other
than
things. Yeah,
But
like
definitely.
a
simple dashboard.
a big concern is, or not a concern, but a big issue that they've not even, that's not even like that they've, um, that's really been considered, right, up till now in our conversation, is how they're gonna manage digital rights, because content rights was why SoundCloud failed, a major reason why it failed. And that's something that they've not mentioned anywhere. I found one tweet where they said that we're building a community-based mediation tool, but nothing else I found. And that's something that I would worry about if I were them. Um, there was a hack also, interestingly, in July of this year. 18 million audio tokens were stolen. But they fixed it in 24 hours, which was good. So that was quite impressive. But yeah, other than that, functionality, dude, functionality is so bad. I in fact, they have rewards if you do certain actions. So one was refer a friend. So I referred myself, and I couldn't claim my tokens when I earned them. Why would I do any other activity, any other actions if I can't claim the initial tokens? And of course, then I couldn't log in as well with correct details, credentials. So that's just validation of what you said earlier, right? Um, But yeah, I think
Yeah.
those are the two main things that I wanted to cover.
Yeah, I
Right.
mean, I don't think I have too much more to say on this.
Yeah,
I
I think
think Yash
Sid
and I
is
have
just
done a bit of
he's
a
just disgusted. He's disgusted
yeah.
that we've done this.
No, no, I'm not disgusted that we've done it because who doesn't like a bit of justified bashing once in a while? But honestly, like, how can you be so bad, man? Like, how?
Given
Yeah. I
given that
mean,
such prominent names have backed them, right? Like that's all the more surprising.
that gives me all the more reason nowadays to realize that VC funds don't like a big name VC fund has no bearing on the success of a protocol. It
Yeah,
just
yeah,
needs the protocol itself needs to be solid. You can spend as much VC money as you want if the protocol doesn't make sense. It's not going to
yeah.
make money long term for
Yeah,
sure.
I think Yash and I have enjoyed a little duet today. It's
Yeah, and I actually feel that I mean the fact that we could break it down in 1 hour, it really bothers me that
it
VC
really
funds are
does.
not
It really bothers me.
But
what
let
do
me
they
ask
do
you
there
this.
then?
Let me ask you this. If they do employ a subscription model, let's assume that the users are there, the supply and demand is there, and they employ a subscription model now in terms to
I
monetize.
would okay.
And they funnel a portion of that to the token holders. How does that change your perception of the protocol?
I mean, if they fix the tokenomics, if they just
Because
fix everything, and like let's say that the music selection is, let's say, even like kind of comparable to Spotify. Let's say that you have, obviously it makes sense. Obviously, like it just makes sense. Like there's like no one's saying that this idea is bad. We haven't even spoken about the idea being bad once. Like the idea obviously makes sense. Give musicians more money, like distribute revenue more fairly. It's not rocket science. We work in complete agreement with the idea. I mean, I'm just speaking for Yash, but I know that he is. It's just that uh the execution is god awful, and that's all we've been speaking about. Yeah, ideas don't matter for anything. I come up with like 10 ideas every day.
yeah.
The
I mean,
execution is the important part.
it needs to be something like you pay in a normal stable coin or whatever, something a subscription fee. The
Yeah,
subscription fee then goes to, part of it will go to token holders who, they'll stake the token and they'll earn the fees on the token. Another part could go to, I mean, depending on whose songs you've heard, on every play, an artist could earn a cut of, the total fees or something like that. Or all of the money could go to stakers and artists could be rewarded themselves with more tokens based on their visibility, right? So they could be
yeah.
rewarded with Audius tokens based on their visibility.
And
I
like
mean,
yeah,
there's so
there's
many
so many
different
ways.
things they could
Like
do. Yeah.
yeah, you could use Yash's second model and go like, oh, if they've earned enough audio tokens, then once you cross a certain threshold, then they can release NFTs to their fans. I don't know. There's so much stuff that can be
Yeah,
done. Nothing
Yeah,
has been done.
yeah. I
exactly.
think out of everything, the most shocking is just the product itself. Like I think they need to be had out of
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah. Anyway, I think that yeah, we've droned on for long enough. I think
Yeah.
everyone gets the point that good idea, worst execution that we've seen. Um, and that's in a nutshell it, for me at least.
Yeah. In a nutshell, it's no good.
Yeah.
No good.
No good.
Yep. Yep. I have nothing
Uh,
to say.
Yeah,
Cheers.
with
Cool.
that, I guess we'll sign off, guys. Hope you enjoyed this different episode where we have zero praises and just insults. It was definitely refreshing.
Yeah, I mean it's last week.
Yeah.
Going through GMX, I was in awe of how good a job that they had done. Literally, like I mean, you'll see. By the time this comes out, the GMX article would have come out. Literally, the only point of concern for me is the governance aspect of it, where they haven't laid it out yet. Everything else is almost pitch perfect.
Yeah,
So coming to something that has almost nothing pitch perfect is a nice 180.
yeah,
Yeah. No
definitely.
offense. No personal attacks
Yeah,
to the
this is not personal.
audience
Where I
team.
mean,
Yeah, this
If you're
is
listening and you
very,
want
I
to
mean, I
clarify,
think we were
please
quite,
reach out to us.
yeah. If we're wrong, I would love to be wrong about,
I would love to be wrong. It's a
Yeah.
great idea.
yeah,
So please,
yeah.
yeah. Cheers.
Okay.
Thanks everyone, and
Anyway,
see you
cheers,
next time.
guys.